speak German, you can learn with us? Good. I think you had enough time to read it, so I don't have to repeat everything. Okay, let's read together. The name of the school was Bauhaus. 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 It's the modern design school in the Weimar Republic of Germany. Let's read this together. Modernes Design. Design. Design is a word we take from English, right? We have a German word, we come to this later, but the most used for industrial design is design. And then aus. Aus means from, and here the name of the country, Deutschland. Sehr gut. And I hear somebody says Deutschland, but I say Deutschland. Deutschland. Okay, fantastic. And the slogan in English, we see it here, less is more, everybody knows. In German it is weniger ist mehr. Weniger ist mehr. Weniger means less. Weniger ist mehr. Like this? Okay, weniger ist mehr. And then Form folgt Funktion. Form folgt Funktion. Form follows function. Right? So the main thing is the function, and the design is something that follows the function. It's not something that comes first, ideally. Okay, so let's read one more time. Weniger ist mehr. Weniger ist mehr. Form folgt Funktion. Form folgt Funktion. Fantastisch, sehr gut. When I say fantastisch, you understand, right? Good. Fantastic. Okay, I'm clicking the wrong way here. Okay, let's have a short look at the timeline. So Bauhaus was from 1919 to 1933, right? This is the first first German Republic is the same time from 1918 to 1933. Before we had the German Empire with the Emperor. Before we had the Emperor, maybe you have seen pictures of him. Kaiser Wilhelm, Emperor Wilhelm II, the guy with the mustache which went up to the side. He was the last emperor. he had this war, the First World War, and Germany lost, and he had to abdicate. There was a revolution in Germany. And he took all his belongings into a large train, and went to the Netherlands. He went to the Netherlands for his rest of his life. He died somewhere in the 40s. Then we had the Weimar Republic, and then within the Weimar Republic, we had this school, Bauhaus. When the Nazis came to power, the first thing was they closed the Bauhaus. Why? Because they didn't like the people there, they didn't like the style of design, and they didn't like anything that is modern when it comes to aesthetics, right? So because the aesthetic of the Nazis was different. Within the Nazi period, we had the Second World War. Okay, that's just a rough outline. Let's begin. So the founder of the Bauhaus, let's read the name together, Walter Gropius. Yeah, and I hear some, as usual, they say Walter, but I say Walter. Walter. It's not English W, it's like English V. Walter. Sehr gut. Walter Gropius. Walter Gropius. Okay. So his profession was architect. Architect. He came from a big family where many people already have been architects. So his background was in architecture. He was always into modern architecture, advanced architecture, as we see here. This is a building from the 1920s. It's quite avant-garde for the time. Not everybody at the time liked this kind of building. We go to the next slide and have a look. So let's read for traditional taste. Traditioneller Geschmack. Traditioneller Geschmack. Can you read it? Traditioneller Geschmack. The traditional taste of German people at the time and also nowadays. If you ask many people, which building do you like more, this style or this style, many people would prefer this one, right? So this is from around, built between 1900, maybe 1900, 1910, 1914. This is the period when these buildings were built. Talking about these buildings, so of course everything has been restored, right? Restored and repaired. When you look at this house here, one family house for rich people, is there anything from the restoration you would not like? Where you would think is wrong, not well done, is the windows. So anybody who is in conservation in Germany, he would complain about the windows because they have modern windows without any partition in between. Of course, the modern windows, everybody prefers the modern windows. You see more, is easier to clean, is of course also cheaper. But if anybody who is into conservation would see this, he would be very angry and he would complain. On the left-hand side, this is how many houses in Berlin still look, just a normal house. Okay, we're still with Walter Gropius. These are this left one is a building he built after the war in Berlin. And on the right-hand side, this is the house where the teachers lived in the Bauhaus during the time where the Bauhaus was a normal art school. What we see here is new for the time to have these color parts here. At the time of the Bauhaus, you could not have done this in the 1920s. This is typical for the 1950s and 60s. At the time, you would not have the strong paint which would last in the sun. It would bleach out or split off or whatever. Okay, let's go to the next one. Well, let's talk a little bit about this one, about the typography. So Bauhaus, when we look at the logo, is this one here. So they're modern people. They have modern typeface. They also had typeface designers there, and they designed a number of typefaces. Let's have a look at how typefaces are designed very roughly. So we have the Bauhaus here in different typefaces. So the most common typeface nowadays on computer is also Calibri, which is largely copied from the Bauhaus tradition. Largely, not everything. Then we have the one that we have very often nowadays, because many people are used to it, is Times New Roman. And then we have an old style, maybe 300-year-old typeface for book printing, which is called Garamond, was invented by a French book printer 300 years before. What is the main difference between the typefaces? Like the modern typeface, as used in Bauhaus, does not have these things here. These little endings, the end parts, which are called serifs. All typeface can be separated into two large groups, with serifs or without serifs. And Bauhaus promoted always without serifs because they wanted to have everything as clear as possible without any useless addition. Because the serifs, they say, is only decoration. Other people say it's not decoration. Other people say it's necessary for easy reading. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. How come you're so late today? Well, it can happen, huh? It can. Hello. I put this here in case somebody comes, they can take it here. Okay, so we have the serif, the ones with serifs and the ones without serif, right? Not everybody agrees that this is a good typeface. Of course, I agree because I like Bauhaus. But other people say it's easier to read if you have these little kind of connections. So there's a big discussion about typeface designers, which one is better. How would you try to prove your point? Nearly impossible. You can only look at how fast people are reading, how much they understand, and what they say, how easy it is to read. So basically it's a futile job. If many people say, I can read this the easiest, the reason is, of course, they see this typeface the most often. Like they read, for instance, the Times, right? Then everybody in the Times has this typeface. Most books are printed like this, so we are more used to this. It doesn't mean that it's per se easier to read. Okay, so short about the typeface, and of course, we look at this here. The U is like this. The A is like this. On the next slide, we come to this typeface, because the next person is very interesting. Let's read his name, Franz Ehrlich. Franz Ehrlich. Franz Ehrlich was an architect, and he was always a leftist, and he always was fighting the Nazis. During the Nazi time, he was fighting the Nazis, so they put him in a concentration camp. The German abbreviation for concentration camp is this. We pronounce it KZ. KZ means concentration camp, and the city where this concentration camp was is Buchenwald. Buchenwald. So he was in this concentration camp, and since he was an architect, of course he was abused by the people there. As an architect, they used him to do things. Like he had to design, I don't know, had to design the new annex to some building or something. And these people, they were called function prisoners, and he was a function prisoner. So he was there to be used by them. So the good point for him is, if they use you for something, then maybe you get a little bit more food than the others. That is the use, that is why he did it. And then the interesting thing happened. They asked him to design the door, the gate, the big iron gate for this concentration camp. And this is another concentration camp, but he designed this, and he took the typeface of the Bauhaus. And the Bauhaus was something that the Nazis actually hated. So he took this typeface, and of course, like this normal camp wardens and soldiers, they would not know the difference. They have no idea. They have no idea that there's different typeface. So it was actually quite his subversive activity to take the typeface of his beloved Bauhaus school and put it there. The other, because on all the other camps, they have a totally, on all the other camps, they have a totally different typeface. We see it here. That is the normal one, and that is the typeface he chose. So very interesting thing. So after he was released after the war, so he survived, luckily, he became a furniture designer in East Germany. When anyone looks at this, so you see immediately this is furniture design from the 1950s, from the 1960s, and somehow you have the feeling this could be East Germany. Somehow you get the aesthetics and the feelings of this time. Also like this here, the vase here on top, the color design and everything. So if I see this, let's say in an antique shop, I would know. If I see this, sorry, if I see this, I would know it is from East Germany, or at least it's from the 1950s or 60s. Easy to detect. Okay, so very interesting person. And we come to someone who is not so much known as a designer. He is more known as an artist. Let's read the name together. Oskar Schlemmer. Oskar Schlemmer, and his most famous painting is this one here. That's the staircase in this school. Later on, we see a photo of this. So he's very popular in all the art collections, in all the modern art museums. They have usually a painting of his, if available, and but He also designed some stuff, so this is very interesting. Is an early portable record player. So it's actually only so small, and then the record you put on it is much bigger, and then it would turn. You have to wind it up like a toy, and then you could listen to music. So that is just to show that he also designed other things, but basically, unlike most people we see today, he is not an architect and not an industrial designer, but he was also interested in doing things like this. Okay, Oskar Schlemmer. So that is why I don't put him as designer, I put him as Künstler. Künstler means artist. Künstler means artist. This letter with the two dots in the middle, the U with the two dots, let's read together. Ü. With the two dots is Ü. Okay, fantastic. What he's most for is this thing. He designed a ballet, which he called Triadisches Ballett. Fancy name. Triad means something with three. So the whole ballet is centered around the idea you have three things, like you have three dancers, you have three acts, you have three components, like I don't know, maybe form, color, and sound, or something like this. Everything was with three, and that basically is only a fancy name for something which, at the time, he toured Germany all over the 20s. He toured, or the troupe toured Germany, and it was very popular. When you see this nowadays, you think, how can this be popular? If you're interested, you go to YouTube. You find it on YouTube in a modern production, because old production, you only have some short black and white clips, which are not very good, but the whole color and experience and everything you only have in the modern production, where they redesigned and repainted the costumes and everything. And it's interesting enough to see this. The music which they used was avant-garde music at the time by Paul Hindemith, famous composer at this time. Even nowadays he's famous. And nowadays you have various new productions with new music. So go to YouTube, have a look. It will shoot you back to the avant-garde culture scene in Europe or in Germany in the 1920s. Interesting. So we come to the next person, a designer, and a lamp that basically everybody knows. This lamp is this one here. After the name, we call it Wagenfeld Lampe. So let's read his name. Wilhelm Wagenfeld. Wilhelm Wagenfeld. So he is an interesting person. He did, when he was a young man, he did lots of apprenticeships in different trades, where he would build things made of metal, made of glass, and everything. And then later on, he became interested in lamp design, and he became a professor there at this school. And like most of the Bauhaus designs, you can still buy these things. They're still produced. They're lousily expensive. You get cheaper ones which are produced in other countries, for instance in China, usually poor quality, usually to avoid copyright. Maybe they change a little bit so that nobody can say you copied this. So it is the whole copyright issue for these older things is interesting and very difficult. It's a difficult issue. Also for the people who own it actually, or who inherited it, to defend their property. It's a difficult task. Okay, Wilhelm Wagenfeld, most known for this lamp. I had classmates when we graduated from high school, they got this as a present from their parents. Unfortunately, I only got a book. Still traumatized by this. Anyway, it's a beautiful lamp, and you get it in various variations. For instance, here we have the glass socket, and this part also made of glass. Inside you see the electrical wire, which is in itself difficult to produce. So just, it's not only from the aesthetics, not only from the rarity, it's also from the difficulty of production that the price is relatively high. Also at the time, only few people would afford this. First, only few people are interested in having a lamp like this, and then only few people can afford it. Another thing what he's famous for is to change later this to opaque glass so that you can use it for reading better because the light is distributed in a more even way. So he was also interested in the technical aspect, not only in the aesthetic aspect. So anyway, very beautiful lamp in my opinion. And we go to the next thing. So when the Bauhaus was closed by the Nazis in 1933, he was not much involved in politics anyway. So he had his own company, and he produced lots of different things. When you look at this here, it's very much linked to Germany because the fireproof glass at the time came from a German factory in Jena. It's called Schott, S-C-H-O-T-T. The Schott glass was famous for optical glass and for glass which is fireproof. When you look at this kind of stuff, what do you notice immediately? Which present-day company very much likes to be a little bit like Bauhaus is, of course, Mucci. The favorite company with good design, in my opinion, is Mucci. They have many things like very simplistic, like Japanese design. Japanese design and this kind of German design, Scandinavian design is very much alike. We have similarities there. And we talk about Bauhaus, or every second word, of course, I say is German. But of course, in other countries, especially in the neighboring countries in Scandinavia, they have very good designers, only they are not in the Bauhaus. So I cannot mention everyone. We focus on the Bauhaus today, but everywhere, especially in Northern Europe, you have people who do similar things. Similar, also in the US, of course, you have similar things. But we just happen to talk about Bauhaus today. In the war, when nobody had money, he produced cheaper and simple stuff so he could sell something. So he designed these simple household things like a lemon squeezer or like Tupperware, but only made of glass for storage. But also always nice design, also still produced. You can still get it, although the lemon squeezer more or less every lemon squeezer you buy nowadays looks similar to this. And typical from the 1960s, the portable typewriter. So he was still active up to the 50s, to the 60s, and then in the 70s, finally he sold his company. So a very interesting person. His ideal of how an office should look would have been something like this. On the desk here, we see the lamp. And we see the typical carpet of the time, which was made in the Bauhaus also, and the typical furniture for sitting also. So everything a little bit geometric, very simple, and very, how should I say, very carefully designed and matched. So this is the idea of the Bauhaus, to create an environment like this, because they did not only think we want to create something new so that people buy it, they, rightly or wrongly, they believed that people would get better if they are in an environment like this. They believe they can improve the human nature by design. They're not the only ones. There are other, in Germany and in England also, some reformist designers for furniture who believe the same. So it's a common thought from the second half of the 19th century, first half of the 20th century, that people want to achieve something with their design. Okay, so Mucci, if you want to buy something much cheaper but also nice, Mucci has all these things. And we come to the next person. The first one is Ludwig, and then his family name is Mies van der Rohe. Mies van der Rohe. So a relatively strange name, sounds a little bit Dutch to me. And he is most famous for having designed, aside from houses, he designed this kind of chair here. This kind of chair, which in many variations is still sold. You have this part round, you have this part squared off, you have it with leather, you have it with wood. And the interesting thing here is you could not have designed a chair like this before, because this kind of steel pipe is made of steel piping, did not exist before. So it needs elasticity. You sit on it, and it's a little bit swinging. It's a little bit elastic, so that is why it is called Freischwinger, the English term for this kind of chairs. Cantilever chair. In English, cantilever is anything that comes out and you don't see the support. So here, of course, you see the support is here, right? What do you think when you see this chair? So this is leather here. So the leather needs some support from the other side. Otherwise, the leather would stretch out, and sooner or later be ruined. So it's not as simple as it looks. So you have this leather, you have this metal wire underneath. And when you look at him, the designer, we think he's the designer, he's a genius, he's sitting on his own chair. But any normal person who looks at it would think, for this big guy, the chair looks too small. That's my opinion. He looks like an elephant on a bicycle, sort of. He was a very big guy, but of course he designed the chair for everybody else to buy, and so some people say it's a little bit unproportional. Anyway, very famous. So let's have a look at this here. So they try to keep it simple, but simplicity alone is sometimes a little bit difficult to achieve. When you buy a chair like this, you can still buy all this. You usually buy also plastic things to put here so don't scratch your floor. So already some purist in design would think this ruins the whole idea. Why do we have these things? But we need these things. Otherwise, you scratch your floor, you scratch the whole thing. So you buy a chair for, I don't know, you buy a chair for 500 euros, and then you have to get these plastic things, which do not really match. Cantilever chair, Freischwinger. The cheapest one you get in Hong Kong is this one here, $6.99 from IKEA. IKEA became famous because of the simple design, simple, affordable Scandinavian design. They have designers from everywhere. Of course, they have Scandinavian designers, but very famous guy is Noboru Nakamura. The Japanese guy, he came from Japan. He studied design in Sweden, and then he found a job with IKEA, and he worked for IKEA for a long time. So when we look at this, of course, when he takes the photo, he takes it exactly from the side. It looks fantastic. When IKEA takes the photo for the catalog, it looks less fantastic. It looks a little bit clumsy already, because the whole thing has to be thicker because it's made of wood. Scandinavians are very good to have this kind of plywood, the bent plywood. I don't know, if you look at older designs, I think it's hard to find anything similar, what you can do nowadays. Different layers of wood to glue them together, and under heat you bend them, and then you have this elastic thing. You can really sit there and shake a little bit, and it does not break. This is something quite rare. So, $6.99 Hong Kong dollars goes up when you want leather on it. Of course, you can pay 1,000. If you want a rocking chair, you pay more. But still, I think it's a good price. They don't pay me, but I have to say because it's really nice. And here we have the things if you have chairs like this, some Germans are very picky. If you have a carpet, whatever you put on the carpet, you get the pattern from what you put on. So if you have a normal chair, you would have four little dots there, right? If you have something like this with more support, you get these U shapes. I visited people in Berlin. They have a room for me, a small room. I stay in the room. The lady of the house, Thomas, did you move the chair? They have a nice chair, antique chair, and I moved it 1 centimeter. Cannot move the chair because they have the chair is there, and then there's this ugly U shape in the carpet. What do? You go to the internet. These fanatics, they do everything with a chair, with a carpet. They come with a fan. They come with an iron. They come with a brush. They come with a spray, just to remove just to remove these things. It's eternal work. In Hong Kong, you don't have this problem because most people don't have carpet. Also, the people here in Hong Kong, the ones I know who have carpet, you're not really happy with the carpet because it attracts the smell from the aircon, the humidity and everything. Carpet, especially made of natural fibers, are not a good idea. So you won't have this problem. And then everywhere you can buy these plastic clips to put on the other chairs. Yeah, the famous guy, he designed a lot of things for IKEA. He worked for them for decades. So many things bear his mark. And I find it quite interesting that a company like IKEA would take a Japanese. It also shows that the Japanese and the Northern Europeans, when it comes to aesthetics and design, have something in common. It's just like this. Another thing with IKEA, which is interesting, why was IKEA so cheap? So IKEA was founded by a Swedish guy named Kamprad. It was founded in the 1940s, and they had prices which undercut the price for other furniture. For one reason, because Kamprad was so smart. He realized furniture price is not only the production of the furniture. Furniture price includes the transport and the storage of the furniture. And all the furniture they produce can be taken apart and can be put in a flat box. Everything they have. And a designer like him, when he works there, he cannot design what he likes. He cannot design a steel chair like Gropius, for instance. He has to design a chair that can be taken apart and put in the standard size of their cardboard boxes. And like this, so I read somewhere, he can undercut the normal furniture price already by 20%. Just for storage and transport. Is quite amazing. It's quite amazing how all these things add up. Very interesting. So an interesting person, Kamprad in Sweden. First, he did not expand. From 1940 to into the 70s, he only sold in Sweden and maybe in the neighboring countries. Only in the 1970s, he expanded to the rest of Europe. First to Belgium and then to Germany. In Germany, it was immediate success. So everybody wanted this furniture. And he had another way to undercut everyone else. Because the Germans at the time, we liked unpainted wood. And the finishing of the wood surface is a lot of costs. Is sometimes about 50% of the whole thing is just the finish. To paint it, polish, paint again, make it nice. The Germans thought, oh, I buy natural wood. And so they could buy it much cheaper. 10 years later, or even 5 years later, even 2 years later, you realize, what a rubbish. Unpainted wood, you touch it and you have a spot there. You can never clean it. The surface is getting rough, sooner or later you can throw it out. So unpainted wood, not a good idea. but for his entry into the German market, it was ideal. Also, we believe wood comes from Scandinavia, is made by Scandinavian people, so we have a positive attitude. In fact, later on you find out the wood comes from everywhere, and he has it produced in Poland very cheaply, because at the time in the Cold War, Poland was the cheap labor for the Swedish. Okay, enough. He is not from the Bauhaus, but he is sort of, as a Japanese in Scandinavia, also sees himself or saw himself in this tradition. Okay, another famous person, no, the same one, Mies van der Rohe, we had him before. His most famous building that you can see in Berlin is the National Gallery. Let's read the word. Nationalgalerie. Nationalgalerie. And the famous chair that you see, when you go to any museum in the world, very often you see these chairs. It's called the Barcelona Stuhl, because it was first presented in the World Exhibition in Barcelona. That is where this chair got his fame. The chairs, you get them in all sorts of leather finishes, very expensive. The chrome here looks very nice. I see they put it on a carpet here, so they will leave ugly marks, the furniture, and so they have something to do. He, like many others, when the Nazis closed the Bauhaus, he went to the USA. For all these people, for all the architects from Germany, when they wanted to leave Germany and find a job in the US, they could easily find it, because they were very popular, and obviously they didn't have so many there. Of course, they have excellent architects there, but this modern style was much in demand. So they found it there. In Germany at the time, you could not build so high. Like in Berlin, you could not build as high. In New York, the ground is rocky. You have all the hard rocks. That is why they have the highest buildings in the whole world. Empire State Building, right? You build it there, it's rock. Berlin, you can build Berlin is muddy. It's a former swamp. Whatever you build there has to have a very strong foundation, and at the time you could not have foundations like this. Like the old museum in Berlin the foundation is made of oak trees, gigantic oak logs. You put them in the train station in Amsterdam, stone building, right, is sitting on oak foundation. And oak is problematic. Foundation made of wood is problematic. If the water is high, of course nothing happens, right? But then the water lowers somehow, because the people take water from the ground. The water lowers, then the wood gets dry, and you get the insects in there. So it is very difficult. That is the problem we have in Berlin right now, because one of the museums will be closed for, I don't know, for 3 years, because it has to be renovated. And these renovations, especially in Berlin, is very difficult. In Amsterdam is the same, right? Because historically we are just on bad building ground, whereas the people in New York, they're on excellent ground for high-rise buildings. Okay, National Gallery. If you're in Berlin, you have to see the building. As you see, the building is amazing. Okay, another famous person and his famous chairs. His name is, let's read together, Marcel Breuer. He is originally from Hungary. So we see he's born in 1902, so Hungary was part of Austria. Later on in 1918, he went to Vienna. Because before Austria and Hungary were one country, and he was of Jewish origin, so you know already Jewish origin. When the Nazis came to power, he had to leave, whether they like his designs or not. So he was one of them. He designed many things. Also, when you look at the life of these people, is quite interesting. It's not like nowadays you go to high school and then you go to university, you study to be an architect or designer. They very often they went to school, any school, then do an apprenticeship for a bricklayer or locksmith or anything, some metal worker. And then they get interested into art, they try to get into an art school, and finally they go to the Bauhaus. So that is the way it went at this time. So famous for him, you can still buy them. The chairs nowadays, of course, you get in different leathers, and also famous his office furniture. This kind of things you can buy them in antique shops in Berlin, and they are still produced. The problem with office furniture like this, the desk is beautiful, but the desk is only beautiful when it's empty. When it's empty, it's beautiful. Where anybody who works at this desk and doesn't always clean it, he will see, you don't see so much of the desk, right? When you really use it. So that is something. Another thing, look at the chairs he designed. They are beautiful, no question about it. Are they comfortable? They don't look comfortable for me when I see them, and when you sit on them, you notice they are not exactly comfortable. Any ugly chair here is more comfortable, because you have the sharp edges here, the sharp edge where your legs hang over. You don't want to sit there too long. Also, of course, he built stuff, which reminds me a little bit of Hong Kong. These window things with the narrow metal in the windows. That was at the time something new, because before we had wood, now we have metal. Now he introduced metal. And then this guy is not Bauhaus, so I just put it here because he's an important architect in Europe. Very controversial person, because he built very advanced things like the churches here. He designed this famous armchair, which I have seen. The last time I have seen it was in, I think, in the Chunwan Public Library. They have this chair. So I thought, oh my God, they have the Le Corbusier. Look. What are you talking about? Le Corbusier. Nobody knows. So I don't know. I doubt that is the original they have. Of course, they have a copy. But why is he so controversial? He always tried to get involved with people who have power, like in France or the dictator in Italy, Mussolini. And his plans for Paris: tear everything down and build it like this. So is he crazy? Is someone like this crazy? He's a good architect, he's a good designer, but his ideas about human society are really too much. So this guy is controversial. There are lots of books and journal articles about him in France, especially. He's originally from Switzerland, about his political ideas. So basically not acceptable, unacceptable. So I just put him here because this is really very nice, and you find it everywhere. You can still buy it. Now, one thing that everybody talks about when they talk about Bauhaus is the female students and the female professors there. So we come to this timeline again. So Weimar Republic was the first democratic state in Germany. And it had, this had a lot of consequences for everyone, but especially for women also. So for the first time, women could vote. Before, under the empire, women could not vote, of course, right? And then, at least on paper, they were equal. That means they could get jobs in public service. Before, that was not possible under the empire. They could get easier into public education, which is free. Of course, before they could go to private art schools. That's where the richer people, the daughters would go to the private art school, but now they could go to something like Bauhaus. And Bauhaus, of course, welcomed them. And of course, women were much more visible. So now we show a number of female artists and professors from the Bauhaus. So for textile, here we see the the staircase from the painting at the beginning by Schlemmer. So, so the textile arts, so let's read the German word, Textilkunst. Textilkunst. Kunst means art, and textil is clear. So for the textile arts, basically all students and professors were female. Some students would also go, some female students would go to other parts, but many of them, they would be more drawn to the textile. And from what you hear from the architecture faculty there, they were not, some went, but it seems they were not so welcome among the male colleagues there. Anyway, let's have a look at some designs. So what they did, so these things is called a loom, where you make the fabric, where you produce the carpets, and the whole thing to have a carpet to put at the wall is called a tapestry. And then there's one interesting person. She came from Japan. She married, and then the young couple decided, they were rich, to tour around the world. And then they had heard about the Bauhaus before already. So they stayed in Germany and they attended the Bauhaus. And she went to the weaving class. I don't know, there's one photo he took. It's in the M Plus Museum here in Hong Kong, a photo he took of the Bauhaus building. Only one item. Not so much. Actually, in Japan, these people are quite known, but in German or English, not so much known about them. So this is the student card. As you see, at the time, we just took any photo and clipped it, and this was the kind of design she made. I could not find a photo of a real carpet, but only what she had in her book. She wrote books like the connection between Japanese tea ceremony and the Bauhaus, because her father was tea ceremony master. Whatever you do in this job, I don't know. I only know Japanese. they have the tea ceremony. So very interesting person. So she came to Germany. She knew about the Bauhaus before. She learned German and everything, studied there for a number of years, and then went back to Japan. And now we have the German students. Gunther Stölze. Let's read this, her job. Weberin. Weberin. The male would be Weber, the female would be Weberin, female weaver. Weben, we see already, is related to weaving. So she would make this kind of carpets. If you buy a carpet nowadays, is produced by some companies, a carpet, let's say 2 meters by 120 centimeters, like a small double bed, you pay about 1,000 euros, like 10,000. So it's this size, 2 meters by 120. The thickness is 18 millimeters. And they claim is all handmade, is all, I don't know, natural fibers or whatever. And they claim also maximum production number 1,500. However, they could prove it to you when you buy one. So, because the next company can do the same, right? So, but nonetheless, I mean, it's a lot of money, but what do other people buy? You buy a MacBook. What do you get? You get 1 kilo of plastic. After 5 years, you can throw it away. Something like this you can keep for your whole life, and your children, when you die, will be happy to get this. So it's always a question of choice. And then two people, a couple, Josef Albers, Anni Albers, and she did this. She's very famous for this kind of design, and he is very famous for these kind of oil paintings, oil or acrylic. They also went to the USA after the Bauhaus was closed by the Nazis, and he became an art professor there, was successful as an artist, and she is to wider audience who is not so interested in, not so known. But basically, for the people who are interested in having nice furniture, nice carpet at home, she has a big name. Also, you can still buy all these things about the same price, more or less 1,000 or 2,000 euros. And for the company who offers this, is no risk, because you order from them, and only after you order and pay, they produce. Then they I don't know where these people sit, the factory where they claim everything is so humane or whatever. So because we have this law in Germany, that Lieferkettengesetz, everything along the way has to be up to certain standards, right? Labor relations, child work, and stuff like this should be excluded. Anyway, beautiful design, easy to recognize. When you see this, you only have to say Joseph Albers. Everybody knows, you're so cultivated. You know Joseph Albers. He's very easy to know, to recognize. Okay, and then one of the women who went into metal. Let's read the name. Marianne Brandt. Marianne Brandt is more or less timeless design. Also, you can still buy it everywhere. First, you can buy it in the antique shops, and then you can buy the reproductions. It's not really a reproduction, because some is just like the original, right? It's industrially produced stuff. I just put this here because sometimes the question comes up. So when is longer, any pot which is longer, like this one here, is for coffee. In Germany, the higher ones are for coffee, the round ones is for tea. I don't know why, but this is the way it is, because somebody asked me, Thomas, how do you always know this for tea and this for coffee? I said, well, I know from the shape. It's the traditional shape. We would not get the idea to make tea in here or to make coffee in here. I don't know why, but this is how I grew up. Okay, anyway, Marianne Brandt, also interesting story, how she was interested in doing things. She went to these female art schools, and later on she got to the Bauhaus, and in the end she became a professor there. Okay, let's have a look at him. I put him last for the Bauhaus section because he's not a designer, not an architect. He is only an artist, right? And he's very well known. Some people don't like him. They think it is too kitschy, too sweet, too childish, only colors, but other people are real fans. Especially the fans are the art teachers. Most art teachers are fascinated with Paul Klee, and Paul Klee, on the other hand, he was fascinated with children's arts. So he always was interested in how children try to make a painting, and some of these things have a subtext. So here I would normally, when I look at this, I would only think it's just an abstract head. But so when you read the description, so it's actually an older person who's getting senile. So once you hear this and you look at it, you seem to notice something, right? So they seem to, in the face there is something. And here the wood. So this is the painting is called Camel in the Wood. So where's the camel? So you see the legs here, the tail, and then you see some shape which might remind you of a camel. So that is the reason why this kind of things are the reason why he's very famous or very popular in art education, because you have a reason to talk about something, and children can copy this and do something like this in their own way, and this is meant to kindle their interest in art and to release creativity. The most famous painting he has is this here one with the fish. Also, some people who look at paintings like this for 10 hours and think about what does it mean, so they find some symbolism in there. Of course, we sit here in front of the PowerPoint. We cannot in 5 minutes find some symbolism so quickly, but there's this thing like a fishing rod, and there's a watch or a clock in there. So you can think about it, you have different shapes here. And then we have, of course, he had to go to, he was not in the war, but he was drafted to the army. Somehow behind the lines, he had to paint, I don't know, he had to paint some tanks or whatever. This painting, also very strange, is called The Revolution of the Viaduct. Viaduct is like a bridge with many arrows. So obviously the bridge divided into all these many arrows, and now these arrows are marching towards us. So there's lots of room for interpretation for this kind of art. Let's go on. From here, it is not about Bauhaus, it's about a person who very much is similar to the Bauhaus. Similar to the Bauhaus. There is this Dutch group. I don't speak Dutch, but everybody knows how to pronounce it. They pronounce somehow like the Stijl, it means the style. And the founder is this one, Theo van Doesburg, and these are his data. So the Stijl was active from 1917 to 1931. This is the year when he died. But it was declining already before. Let's have a look at some things I'm sure you recognize. The most famous member is Piet Mondrian. Piet Mondrian, the most famous Dutch modern artist, one of the most famous artists in the world, because it's easy to recognize and is frequently used in design. He only had black, blue, red, and yellow. That is all he did. And now everybody copies this design. You don't even have to copy his original design. Anybody can do this. But it's depends, of course. Depends. We don't want to inflate our ego, but it's relatively easy to understand what he does. If you're interested in this, there's an app somewhere. You can download an app where you can create these things too. And of course, every museum shop or everybody who has no own idea, they put this on everything. And another famous person from this group, probably the world's most famous chair is this one here. Is it comfortable with this corner here? I doubt it. If you buy it, it costs 18,000 US dollars. Is still produced. 18,000 US dollars. Of course, you get it cheaper from somewhere else, and it does not look 100% the same. The buildings he built, this is from Vienna, Werkwohnsiedlung, also famous, some kind of public housing from the 1920s. And this is the most famous house. It's called the Rietveld-Schrödinger house because the owner's name was Schrödinger. And inside it looked like this. You can visit the house. Admission is 18 euros. 18 euros. Is it worthwhile? I think you can see better in the internet, actually, than to pay 18 euros to go in there. Anyway, so very, very famous person, and also this chair is of course the most famous. Also looks the best. And here we have the zigzag chair. The famous zigzag chair is cheaper if you buy it. Costs 15,000 US, 15,000 US dollars. It's a lot of money, huh? It's a lot of money to buy a piece of furniture. Now, Piet Mondrian in Hong Kong. The housing authority, at one point they thought in Fothan there are lots of artists. I don't know if you have ever been there. Sometimes they have open day for all the galleries. The galleries are normally in commercial buildings, and you can visit them. It's very nice. Even if you don't buy, I'm not interested in buying anything, but just to look at the things is really nice. So go there, and then to adapt a little bit to this arty atmosphere in Fortan, so they designed the shopping mall like this. When you look at the shopping mall, they want to adapt the Piedmontean style. Is there something you notice immediately that is not right with Piedmontean? Green. Excellent, huh? He would never have used green. He only used primary colors. Primary colors in the subtractive system is red, yellow, and blue, because green is a mixture of blue and yellow, right? So it's not what they want, just like orange is a mixture of yellow and red. So housing authority, okay, thank you for doing this, but not quite right. Huh? So when you renovate it next time, maybe change a little bit to be perfect. What I find so funny in between 7-Eleven, of course they don't change their logo. Anyway, I think it's a very good idea, especially for the kind of buildings in Hong Kong, to do it like this, because many things are square and it's just so inviting to do the Mondrian style there. The founder of this the Stijl movement, or I should say the style, okay, finish, is him. And he and Piet Mondrian were best friends, because what they do looks more or less the same. At one point, this person, he betrayed them all. He started to do diagonal lines. What did Piet Mondrian say? He said, "Nein, cannot do this." He left this artist group. He was disgusted and horrified, because according to his theory, only vertical and horizontal, never diagonal. Cannot do it. So you see, people with their theories are sometimes quite fanatical. What else is this if not fanaticism? Maybe they hated each other, or he hated him for another reason, and he just had to find an excuse. Nobody knows. It's very much in art history, if you read about it, there are different opinions. Could be something else, not only the diagonal line. Okay, Bauhaus in Hong Kong. Is there anything Bauhaus? In my there's one famous architecture professor in Hong Kong, he claims basically everything is Bauhaus. So, so in my opinion, Bauhaus is the town hall. The town hall, in my opinion, is really beautiful, also inside. The staircase, everything. This is, if some Bauhaus guy would see this, he would say, yes, that is how it should look. Choi Hung Estate is gigantic, and the colors are very much faded. You cannot blame anybody. So it's also claimed to be Bauhaus by some people. I'm not sure about this. What is Bauhaus? Is these kind of buildings in is called Kaduri Hill. Is if you get off the KCR in Kowloon Tong or in East Kowloon, and you walk towards Kowloon City, you find these beautiful villa-style buildings. And this here the buildings like this are really outstanding, and I think this is the Bauhaus tradition. Another one that is always mentioned is this one here, is the Garden Bakery. Is it torn down already, or are they planning to tear it down? I'm not sure. So for me, this and this. This for the colors is very, very well done. In any case, you can do a lot with color. In Shekip May, for instance, they painted all the buildings a little bit in great shades of green. Beautiful. It's cheap public housing from the early days, but with a little bit of color, and not just smearing color, but having some plan, some design. You notice immediately it was someone who knew what he was doing, the guy who planned it. Quite impressive. Okay, that's it for today. Beautiful. You go there, you can take a selfie like thousands of people. I've been there recently, quite disappointing with the faded colors. You see people from Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, China. Other troops, many people go there. Why? Because of Instagram. They have to go there. Okay, das ist alles für heute. That's all for today. Vielen Dank. Auf Wiedersehen. Danke, danke, danke. Any question? Any question? No question? Don't expect that I can answer the question, but you can ask one. You can ask one. Keine Frage, no question. So we could go on forever, right? Because of course, in the Federal Republic of Germany, we also have modern design, especially after the war in the 50s and in the 60s, right? Famous companies, famous designers, also known in the whole world, but no time, huh? We cannot do everything at the same time. Okay?
Okay, shall we give a round of applause to our speaker, Thomas, again? Yeah, so Thomas is actually one of our German teachers, but of course, as you can see, he's very knowledgeable in art field and some other fields as well, okay?
Other fields also? Oh
yeah,
my God.
Yeah, he still has a lot of topics which he can talk about. Yeah. If you're interested in our German courses or design courses, okay, we offer you some different types of courses. Please feel free to visit our website. Actually, we have prepared 2 prizes, okay? And Thomas, would you mind asking 2 simple questions, okay? Let's see, who can get our prizes.
Okay, what should I ask?
About what you have said.
Yeah. So, the most famous chair you know?
Bauhaus, right?
Yeah, from the Bauhaus or from any of the chairs here, just the name. Huh? Hi! Sehr gut, Barcelona chair, wunderbar, unbelievable. I cannot believe it. I could never have remembered this. But Barcelona chair, okay. What else?
One more.
Yeah, one more. How can I switch this off here? I'm too excited that somebody knows Barcelona chair. I press randomly.
Just raise another question.
Oh, another question. Who did the famous ballet in the 20s? Not the same knowledgeable student here. The ballet which toured Germany. Can you remember? Oskar Schlemmer. Very impressive, fantastic.
So those are German textbooks and workbooks, okay, which we only use for short courses.
Yeah, but we have new books. These are the old ones.
These are for short courses.
Yeah, for the short
courses.
courses.
For certificate courses, we have got our books outside, which you can also feel free to take a look. Okay. Again, thank you very much for coming. Wish you a nice weekend.
Thank you.